All right, so for this practice, I would suggest to perhaps keep these concepts somewhere in the back of your mind, but don't try to have a hard grasp onto the list or onto the list appearing in a sequence, or don't try to bring it up by heart or anything like that. But if you're aware of the factors, yeah, you can just kind of allow this to vaguely linger somewhere in the back of your mind. And then you can kind of also drop that. You don't really need to think consciously to will anything about this sequence. So yeah, you just know that it exists, and then you can drop that. And so it's usually take a comfortable posture that you can maintain for 20 minutes. This time I would suggest to take a posture where you don't need to move. So try to do some additional movements now if necessary to make yourself comfortable. See if you are stable enough. Maybe gently rest your back against something if that's needed. Keeping in mind that this is not a strict rule to not move. So if you need to move, if you need to adjust slightly during the practice, it's really not the end of the world. But the reason why I'm suggesting this is because we're trying to notice some subtle sensations in our bodies. And maybe for this session, we want to try to avoid discomfort and movement interrupting that. That's all. And it is also possible to notice these factors when we move or even when distractions are present. But for now, we want to try to create a fruitful environment for observing the factors of awakening. And let's begin by inviting relaxation, noticing that this time we don't want excessive relaxation because excessive relaxation might lead to dullness. And one of our factors is energy. But we also don't want to have excessive energy because excessive energy can be destabilizing for the practice. And so take a few deeper breaths and notice the sense of invigoration when you inhale. And then notice the sense of relaxation, but more kind of opening, spreading that spreading that invigoration in a soothing way across the body and through the field of experience. And again, you inhale, there's a sense of invigoration. Then at the exhalation, you allow that to calmly dissipate and spread evenly across the body in a relaxing way. And then again, you can do this for a few more cycles. And notice how the breath is one of the tools that can help us increase or decrease energy. And you can also start to compare whether there are differences in perception, in how you perceive the phenomena during the inhalation and during the exhalation. And so this practice is not a breathing practice, but you may also notice the qualities of attention in relation to the breath. And by doing this, you become mindful of your experience. So you inhale and you observe the quality of the breath, and you observe the quality of attention, and in which way attention perceives or holds or integrates with the phenomena. Then when you exhale, you observe the qualities of the breath, the qualities of attention, and how they integrate. You can kind of take a back seat for now and just observe how that happens. You may notice that observing the breath at different parts of the body might result in different experiences. So if you pay attention to the breath at the chest, that might be quite energizing. While if you observe the breath at the belly, that might be soothing. Having narrow and wide attention will also reflect differently on the energy aspect of experience. So having very narrow energy, so narrow that it must be maintained with effort, will likely produce stronger energy, while having open attention or maybe placing the source of attention behind you, somewhere far, will typically feel calmer. Not necessarily dull, but likely calmer than narrow perception. And again, you just take a back seat and observe the breath, how it interacts with the body, observing body sensations. And you take an active stance. You are engaged, but you're simply observing what's happening. Just observe the flux of the breath, the body, attention. You notice that it's there and that it's moving. You notice that there are different qualities and that they arise and pass. You're simply present to all of it. And you try to maintain that presence, maintain a non-discriminative approach, and maintain a curious engagement with experience. Then you can slowly increase that curious engagement. You can try to be more inquisitive about parts of your experience. You can become more curiously inquisitive about subtle sensations of the breath or subtle sensations in the body. You can choose an area and try to become more and more curious and attentive to the actual physical or emotional or whatever kinds of sensations that are there. And try to be so inquisitive and so curious about this area that you start to notice the finer, granular sensory qualities. So maybe you'll notice that there is something that perhaps resembles a mist of tingling, moving, slightly waving, undulating sensations. And then you become even more curious about it. And you can even get excited about it, but excited in a way that supports investigation and does not become too destabilizing. And then you can try to be so curious about it that you'll want to probe through these pieces of misty, undulating, tingling sensations that arise in experience. It's like you want to see into each grain. And you want to give your entire attention to these tiny pieces of experience. So you want to remove yourself completely from the experience. You want to be completely intimate and surrendered to this fine sensory experience. And then try to penetrate through it. Have this active move to go almost into these sensations. And notice that when you try to do that, there is likely mild pressure that builds up either in that part of experience or somewhere else in the body. And when you recognize that, try to repeat that until that pressure gains momentum, or until that tingling starts to spread and arise in different places in the body. So you may notice that there is another spot in the body that just spontaneously started to manifest as this misty, flowy, undulating field of sensory qualities. And you can start to attend to those. And maybe there is another spot that again appears like a flow of grains of sensations. You can try to penetrate deeper into these until you see this pleasant tension starting to build. And doing that over and over and over again, you will build momentum that will result in a way of, in some kind of overflowing, or you will be immersed in this experience, or you will dive into the experience, or the experience will spread like a wave over the body or over the field of experience. So just keep doing that. The move here is to surrender completely to experience and its finest sensory qualities. And then once you notice the feeling of immersion or a wave flowing over the experience, just surrender to that wave. Allow the attention to ride that wave or to be taken by that wave. You can try to repeat that again, so you can return to that way of attending until you build momentum where presence of attention creates stronger and stronger intensity in the sensations until it overflows. And then at some point you may notice that it's been enough of waves, or it's been enough of intensity. And for some reason, it's much easier to maintain presence, or the mind is becoming much lighter, peaceful. The whole experience might become more peaceful. Concentration is maybe easier to maintain. If experience becomes too peaceful that it drifts into dullness, you can simply, for a few breaths, notice the invigoration at the in-breath and just allow experience to be relaxed and peaceful and enjoy that. You may notice that if you try to inquire or investigate, it might be easier to do that now than at the beginning of the sit. That as a result of the sequence, the concentration has become stronger and effortless. And you can even take that feeling of concentration as the object, or the qualities of attention as the object, together with its content. Feel into the whole field of attention. Try to see where it reaches. You can take that as the object with its content. And allow the attention to be naturally wide. Observe its calm and steady qualities with subtle, slow undulations that don't disturb the concentration. You can take the whole of attention and all its content as the object and observe. And you may notice that the body is calm, the emotional tone is neutral, it may be less easily triggered by mental concepts or emotions. It can simply hold them, observe them, not get so tangled up in them. It's like smooth, steady sailing. Attention is broad. Many of its parts appear with the same clarity. It does not require effort to see different parts in experience. The body doesn't seem to be particularly aroused. Those are the qualities of equanimity. And before we close, know that even here, you could repeat the beginning of the sequence, and that might actually lead to even deeper concentration and deeper equanimity. So you can bring in even more mindfulness, investigation, energy to produce rapture, even in this state. And it might actually deepen the state. And again, allow attention to synchronize with the shape of experience. So allow whatever you perceive to be your perception or your attention to behave or flow or take on the frequency of experience. And yeah, when you feel like it, you can slowly leave the meditation. You may want to feel into the sense of gratitude. Maybe take a few deep breaths just to wake up. And that was it. So we are 7 minutes over. I hope it was useful, that you didn't feel like I wasted your time. 7 minutes of your life. And I'm curious to see or to hear how that was.